All right, so if you go on to the next one. So what we're going to cover today, basically a tiny bit about NHRA, about the project itself, the governance and reporting and the EOI process and about submitting and everything. And really, as I said before, really informal. Please stop me at any time and ask any questions that you have. Nicola will be assisting with this project as well. And Andrew has a bit of a background in heatwave research as well, so was involved in the development of this concept. So if you don't know about Natural Hazards Research Australia, we began operations in July 2021 with 85 million over 10 years, so funded by the Commonwealth. And then we also have contributions that come in from all our partner organisations. So that's all the sort of emergency management organisations, government departments that work in that resilient sector, NGOs across Australia from all the different states and territories also provide, some give money contributions, others give in-kind contributions, and then our sort of research ideas and concept development comes from our partners. So we meet with them, talk about their research problems, and then we develop EOIs and research ideas that we put out for tender, like this one. And the core objectives of the centre: to protect human life, minimise harm and suffering and losses, contribute to the well-prepared and resilient communities. And really, our research is all very applied, very usable research, which we hope will drive changes in policy and practice. So this project was, as I said, we have all our sort of partner organisations, agencies that are signed up with the centre. And for this one, we got together with a whole range of different people from different states, and we ran a workshop to see what are the still the research needs that people still have in this space. And concepts were then sort of developed and put forward by the South Australian SES, the Northern Territory Department of Health, the Victorian Department of Health, Central Energy, Western Sydney Regional Organisation of Councils, and the Bureau of Meteorology. So we had a really good workshop discussion with all of these groups who sort of represented different areas within the different states and territories. And we came up with 5 work packages based on the discussion that we had with these people. And the way this will work is that the successful research team will work really closely with these agencies, with these organisations from the project outset to completion. So work package 1, which is really around the communication of the warnings and the information. And it's looking at exploring the efficacy, reach and impact of the National Heatwave Service, which includes the Bureau's new decision support and warning products and heatwave agency heatwave warnings. So we think that this work package is going to involve interviews, focus groups and workshops with key representatives from the public and also from all of those relevant agencies in the different states and territories across Australia. So really looking at how those warnings are being used, to how the new 7-day heatwave forecast products are being used to trigger warnings and disseminate messages, what barriers still exist in translating those warnings into action, how the public are receiving them, how the media is receiving them and interpreting them and translating them to the public, and also whether community understanding perceptions has changed from baselines. So we've got records of baselines. I think it was South Australia did a baseline study a few years ago, and other states, and some of this research exists that we can compare people's current understanding with. But for where there is no baseline, we also want to collect that information, so at least we have an understanding of public understanding now that we can then track as we move forward. So are there any questions around that work package? Yep, Sharon?
Hi, yep, sorry, a bit slow for Mark. I'm just wondering, is there scope to include other types of methods as well as the focus groups and workshops, for example, a survey?
Absolutely, yep. And we're open to any innovative techniques and different ways of doing things. So absolutely, and certainly a survey would be great. Yeah.
Thank you.
So work package 2 is to increase understanding of the impacts of extreme heat and poor air quality on health service outcomes. And this idea was really driven by work that the Northern Territory Government Health Department have been wanting to do. They're sort of seeing that coincidence of heat waves and poor air quality really driving poor health outcomes. So they have the data around the hospital presentations and admissions and want to do a detailed case study of what's happening up in the Northern Territory. It may be the case that this work package would also be extended within South Australia, but sort of for this work package, it's really a discrete scoping case study that we're seeing that would happen here and working closely with those partners. And also looking at the failure of power networks and hospital admissions as well. And I think with that second part of this, that maybe could occur outside of South Australia and the Northern Territory. So wherever we've got data on that available. Gavin?
Hi, Kat. I was wondering, in the scope of this particular package, is there any potential work on new ways to monitor air quality and monitoring temperature? So, for instance, using whiz-bang satellite imaging, etc.
Certainly, if that was something that you thought you could research and bring to this, we would be absolutely open to that. Yeah, absolutely. I guess really this work package was trying to explore, I guess, what the impacts are of extreme heat and poor air quality. So having both together and having, like we know with the 1920 bushfires, there's a lot of smoke for many, many months associated with also very hot weather and what that meant for health outcomes. So I guess fundamentally this work package is really trying to explore that, but certainly what you suggest would also be interesting. So work package 3 is all around looking at mortality from extreme heat. And as we know, it has been really difficult to accurately define heat wave fatalities. And to be able to do that in a time-sensitive way as well has been very difficult. And during the 2009 heatwave events, South Australia very successfully were reporting a daily sort of mortality count, which they felt contributed significantly to raising people's awareness and people checking in on neighbours and friends and vulnerable people that they knew. They felt that really helped. So this would be looking at how we could more accurately record and determine those heatwave mortalities for sort of outreach and for communication. Alan, you had a question?
Yeah, I was surprised that it didn't include morbidities as well, because I know perhaps harder because it's on a continuum and not everyone presents when they have an illness, but yeah, a bit surprised that wasn't part of the aim.
Yep. It certainly could be. If you wanted to write that into your reply to the EOI, that could certainly be something to consider. Yeah.
Sorry, Kat,
am I still clear? Because my internet just flicked up as saying.
Yeah, we missed the second half of that, but I think got the gist.
Can anyone still hear me?
Yep.
Work package 4.
Yep.
So this one is to really explore the full impacts and costs of extreme heat, which really hasn't been explored in any detail at all, and to really be able to cost and mitigate and develop appropriate mitigative options and policies to reduce extreme heat. We really need to know, what actually is the full cost to ensure that, we can invest all of this in it and demonstrate that it's worth this investment upfront, because this is actually the full cost. So this includes everything from mental health impacts to missing days of productivity from work and all of those things. So it'll be to develop a methodology that can then be used by different partners and agencies across Australia so they can themselves measure the tangible and intangible impacts of extreme heat. Are there any questions? No, all good. So work package 5, and this is quite an exciting one, really, to look at the building codes and adaptive building design. So looking at what are the current barriers for the inclusion of extreme heat within the National Construction Codes, and being mindful that some work has already been done looking at sort of current regulations around sort of thermal the cooling and the warmth of current designs. And it's been found that in terms of extreme heat, there is limited effectiveness currently within the National Construction Code. Also looking at what proportion of hospital admissions and mortality rates can be attributed to building performance. And when you're preparing your EOI, please be mindful to consider recent work that has been conducted on this, and there's a publication that you can refer to for that. Looking at what adaptations are required to improve resilience to extreme heat in the short term and the long term, and which would be most cost effective. Looking at public willingness to pay for adaptations, things that would be more costly, and also looking at what are the maladaptations. Are there any unintended consequences of proposed building adaptations? You know, does making changes for extreme heat have an effect on cold stress or energy efficiency, or perhaps risk from bushfires or anything like that? Were there any questions? Yep, Alan?
Yeah, that is an exciting one. Does this potentially extend beyond what I guess I'd call the building envelope, like site design, street design, suburb design, etc.? I mean, obviously there needs to be some sort of scope, but obviously there's a lot of synergistic relationships between an individual structure and its setting.
Yep, absolutely. I think it does. Certainly the site, the street, I would think that would be well within scope. Yeah, as you said, Alan, I think, yeah, you wouldn't, it would be, I think, very limited if we just looked at the structure itself and didn't consider those other external factors. So in terms of the budget, we haven't specified a budget, and we are looking for, when you provide your EOI, I guess, your thoughts on what this would, how you would cost it to do it well, but cost effectively. The time frame is 3 years, and there are 5 work packages, where we don't expect all of the work packages to all take 3 years. Maybe they'll take, you know, less time, more time. So, you know, think about that when you're costing up the project. We're also, this one is a little bit different to the projects we normally put out, because there are 5 work packages in there. They are all interrelated, but they are all different. Some have very different skill sets involved. So we are looking for, I guess, teams to come together who have those different skills from different organizations, different universities. We do want one organization to be the lead bidder, who we will undertake the contracting with, who would then subcontract with the other teams. So I guess that's also why this tender is out for a little bit longer, while we've done this briefing. If there are people on this call who would like to be considered by others, please introduce yourselves, because while this tender is open, at NHRA staff, we can't help put you in touch with each other. So we hope that you can do that yourselves. Are there any questions to do with that? So I think that slide covers some of the things I said. Those who haven't worked with NHRA previously, we have a very sort of strong governance system for our projects. You would be working very closely with the agencies that I listed at the beginning of the presentation who submitted the ideas for this. And we like to see them as part of the project team, really, not so much end users, but sector partners who work with you from the beginning of the project to the end. So the successful team would work with those partners to develop the full research plan, which would be signed off by NHRA and those sector partners, and then they would work closely with you throughout the research. We also have a wider, what we call a translation and implementation panel, which is a wider stakeholder group of people who are also interested in those results, who would advise on the translation and utilization of that research. So we would have regular project meetings and briefings on the research with all of those groups. In terms of the reporting, I think that's fairly straightforward in terms of there are milestones and quarterly reports and evaluations, draft reports, final reports, and things like that. So there is more details on the EOI process, including all the frequently asked questions. And I also should have said that any questions that you've asked today will be added to that frequently asked question page, and a recording of this will also be made available there. If you do have any further questions, write to research at Natural Hazards, and the EOIs are to be submitted by Tuesday, the 25th of October. These are some of the details about making your submission, which are all on that EOI form, but more of the detail about all the different sections on that submission form. And I guess one thing to point out is our contract. So we'd like you to look at that ahead of making your submission, send it through to your contracts legal teams to make sure they're happy with it. And if there are any changes, we'd like to know about that before you make your submission.
May I ask, when does this project start? Because it's only have 3 years.
Yes. So it would start as soon as possible, basically, given that there are, I think the submission closes on the 25th. It takes about a month for us to go through the submissions, choose the successful provider, get in contact with you, and then develop up the full research plan, which is done in a sort of co-development approach with our partners. So I would see this project probably starting very early next year.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi there. I was wondering, work packages 1 to 4 offer the opportunity for clinical academics to engage quite closely, whereas work package 5, a lot of the interesting adaptive material research sort of work is happening in practice with architects and engineers. Is there scope and or a sort of understanding about the fact that industry engagement costs might be higher in that particular work package?
Yes. And I mean, because this is a big project, it's really a program of work. It's not just, you know, one research project like many of our other projects. So we are seeing the budget for this project to be bigger than perhaps some of the other projects that we've had. And that would certainly be a consideration. So I guess we're asking you to, you know, as accurately as you can, reflect a budget in your submission, you know, to do the work. We want the work done really well. We want this to have an impact, but it does need to be cost effective. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And just in terms of those impact objectives, are you looking for any specific outcomes, roadmaps, protocols and processes, any sort of defined outcomes at all?
All of those sound good, Joe. We're also looking for, in the submissions that people make, I guess, for your ideas about how you think this would best be communicated to make an impact, whether that was through, you know, roadmaps and, you know, various reports and presentations and recommendations and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
So this is just the EOI assessment and the percentage weighting that is important for you to consider when you're making your applications. And that's all on the document. And that is the end of the briefing. So if there are any more questions, I would be very happy to answer them.
Hi, thanks, Kat. Just a question. Are you implying that there'll be one project that will be selected, that so one partnership, let's say, or are you sort of thinking that there'll be multiple, you know, projects sort of moving to the next stage?
It's hard to say because this is actually the first project that we've done like this. So we've always preferred, you know, if it's a consortium approach, we have selected one provider to work with. We haven't put groups together. That's not to say that this time we might not, because we may get, you know, 2 different applications with 2 very complementary skill sets, and we may decide to actually put these groups together. So that hasn't been decided yet. I guess we're sort of waiting to see the applications come in. But with discussions with the team, we were sort of hoping that people would form consortiums and come together as a team. So I think we were still hoping that we would be able to select one sort of team for this project, but I guess we're just going to have to see what happens.
Just to go on from what Kat was saying there, would certainly be our strong preference to have consortium bids here. You know, we're trying to see the opportunity of this as being a program of work where we're getting a bunch of you know, multidisciplinary capabilities together to work on this and get the collaboration and the leadership behind it as well, which we can't do if we've got multiple discrete projects in this space. So certainly our strong preference would be for that joint consortium approach.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think
potentially what we would see, sorry, Kat, is that you may pick sort of the best components and try to merge those groups together in a final proposal.
I think we'd hope that it would come as a consortium already, so that a few of you with different skill sets would get together and provide one submission across different organizations and skill sets. I think that's what we would hope for. But if that doesn't happen, we may then have to select 1 or 2 providers and put them together. But it wouldn't then be 2 separate projects. It would still be one project, but sort of bringing those different teams together. Yeah.
And if I can just sort of add, I mean, I'm just thinking, because it's such a new space and these topics are, I mean, they're obviously related, but they're also quite different. So the thing is, if you've got sort of a unifying organization that can, you know, propose a methodology that allows you to tap into all those different, you know, issues or packages, but then you're looking at, you know, particular partners with expertise or, you know, networks in those areas of each work package, you know, like economists that might be really focused on the costing aspect, which is very different from the built environment issues, although, you know, you'd want to sort of interrelate those issues. But I just kind of think that in the next 4 weeks, you know, I would struggle. I mean, I'd love to put a proposal in, but in terms of the engagement with partners, I think, you know, there's a limit to how far I can go in this next couple of weeks. But I don't, you know, I would hate to miss out because we haven't done that engagement work, which I actually think is a part of the project. So if the EOI is to sort of extract, you know, the ones that have got sort of, you know, interesting, innovative, and the right skills and capacity to deliver, but then the second phase would be to sort of bring those groups together to be able to sort of not duplicate, but also enhance sort of the multiplier effect of each package, if that makes sense. And then you sort of end up with a final proposal that is a little bit more finessed, well, hopefully a lot more finessed, because that partnership sort of development and aligning of methodologies might then go into that sort of second phase.
Helen,
yes, I don't know if that makes sense, but I think I would struggle to bring together all those different expertise in 4 weeks. And, you know, I'm not an academic, and that's the challenge, that if you're in academia, you've got networks in those areas, but they're very specialized. And so I just wonder if this issue is a little bit, it's very early to sort of expect these advanced partnerships in this space.
Helen, I'm happy to address, and, you know, if at the end of the day we don't achieve what we're trying to achieve here, that will be on us. But you know, in this instance, we are very keen to see the consortiums come together for this piece of work. So yeah, completely acknowledge the points that you're making. But yeah, that's certainly our response, that we've enabled parties 6 weeks, which is more than what we normally allocate to our EOIs for that purpose. And yeah, certainly our strong preference is for the consortiums.
Okay.
That's not to say, by the way, that if a single institution believes it's got the multidisciplinary capability, though, that, you know, it's not a single, you know, university or somebody that puts forward on it. But for those that don't think that they do have the capabilities in their own institution, that consortium approach is certainly the way.
Yeah, okay, I'll give it a good crack, but I just feel that I wouldn't want it to disadvantage you know, the good aspects versus the bits that maybe aren't as developed. That's all. But yeah, thank you.
I have a question around Indigenous involvement. There's really only the work package 2 that is focusing on the Northern Territory and First Nations. How much of an emphasis through the rest of the packages is there on First Nations people as particularly vulnerable to this event?
I think we would certainly want to see First Nations people and other vulnerable groups considered in every one of the work packages, acknowledging that probably work package 2 is the one that really does focus on First Nations people. But yeah, we would, the team would like, and we should be seeing that across all of the work packages. There was a question about budgets. Are we able to talk more about what budgets we might be expecting to see? Andrew, I'll throw this one to you.
I think the EOI has kept the budget open, so we'd like to see what the different EOIs have to say in terms of the various approaches. So certainly at this stage, we're not advising a fixed budget fee or an upper limit. People are welcome to put forward what they see as the appropriate budget, noting the evaluation criteria too there about value for money.
And, of course, you can feel free to reach out if you do have questions after this. We can answer them. We'll put them on the frequently asked question page as well, as we do with all questions that come in, so that everyone has the opportunity to benefit. Otherwise, from everyone else, we look forward to receiving your submissions in a few weeks.